The signal came from a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. It was weak. It was simple. It was just radio waves traveling through the darkness of space. But when the Galactic Council detected it, everything changed. For 3,000 years, the Council had kept peace among the stars. 12 species lived together under the Great Accord. They traded with each other. They shared knowledge. They had agreed long ago that war was too painful and peace was the only way forward. The Lorothy were the first to investigate the signal. They were an insect-like species with thin bodies and long antennae. Their scout ship traveled for many months before reaching the source. What they found surprised them deeply. The planet was called Earth by its people, and its people called themselves humans. The Lorothy expected to find simple creatures, perhaps beings who had just learned to make fire or build small homes. Instead, they found cities that stretched across the land. They found machines that flew through the air. They found that these humans had already walked on their own moon. But the Lorothy also found something else, something that made their antennae tremble with fear. They found the humans. History. The lead Lorothy scientist spent many days reading through human records. He learned about their wars. Not one war. Not two wars. Hundreds of wars. Thousands of wars. Wars that lasted for years. Wars that killed millions of their own kind. Wars fought over land. Wars fought over ideas. Wars fought over things the Lorothy could not even understand. The scientist sent an urgent message back to the council. His words were simple but heavy with meaning. They are broken. They fight themselves. They have always fought themselves. They must be kept away from the rest of the galaxy. The council gathered to discuss this new species. The great chamber on Station Orva was filled with delegates from all 12 member species. The Gorath sat in their massive chairs, their stone-like skin reflecting the light. The Villani floated above their seats, their bodies made of soft, glowing light. The Nexari watched with their deep black eyes that showed no emotion. High Chancellor Morith, an ancient Villani who had lived for over 2,000 years. Read the Lorothy report aloud. In their last century alone, he said. They fought 2 wars that spread across their entire planet. They created weapons that could destroy whole cities in a single flash. They pointed these weapons at each other and came close to ending their own species. The chamber was silent. They fight over the color of their skin, Chancellor Morith continued. They fight over invisible lines they draw on their maps. They fight over which god to worship. They fight over resources they could icily share. A Gorath delegate stood up. His voice was like rocks grinding together. Then the decision is clear. We must block their system. We must never let them leave their planet. Many in the chamber agreed. The Lorothy delegate nodded quickly. The Nexari remained still, but did not object. But then a young Villani spoke. Her name was Sira, and she was new to the council. Wait, she said. We have only seen their darkness. But every species has darkness. Should we not also look for their light? Chancellor Morith turned to her. What light could balance such shadow? Sira moved forward, her glowing form flickering with thought. They survived, she said simply. Despite all their wars, all their hatred, all their violence, they survived. They did not destroy themselves. They are still there. Still building. Still reaching for the stars. The chamber fell quiet again. Perhaps, Sira continued, we should meet them. Perhaps we should let them speak for themselves. The debate lasted for many days. In the end, the council made a decision that many thought was foolish. They would invite the humans to Station Orva. They would let them send representatives to speak before the council. 6 months later, a small human ship approached the station. It was ugly compared to the elegant vessels of the council species. It was made of metal and fire, pushed forward by burning fuel instead of clean energy fields. Inside the ship were 2 humans. The first was a woman named Yuna. She had been chosen to speak for all of Earth. She was not a soldier or a scientist. She was a diplomat, someone trained to talk and listen and find common ground. The second was a man named Wujin. He was a captain in Earth's military forces. His job was to protect Yuna and watch for any danger. He stood straight and tall, his eyes always moving, always watching as their ship docked with the station. Yuna looked out the window at the massive structure. It was beautiful. Towers of crystal and light stretched in all directions. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved around it like fish swimming around a reef. "It is impressive," Wujin said quietly. "It is," Yuna agreed. "They have built something wonderful here." Wujin was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke again. "They're afraid of us. You know that." Yuna nodded. "I read the reports. They think we are monsters. Are they wrong?" Yuna turned to look at him. She saw the scars on his hands. She knew he had fought in 2 wars before being assigned to this mission. She knew he had seen things that still visited him in his dreams. "Maybe they are not completely wrong," she said. "But they are not completely right either. We are more than our wars, Wujin. We have to show them that." The ship's door opened. Bright light flooded in from the station's docking bay. Strange beings stood waiting for them. Tall ones, short ones, ones made of light, ones made of stone. Yuna took a deep breath. Then she stepped forward into the light. Behind her, Wujin followed. His hands stayed close to his weapon. Even though he knew it would do little good if things went wrong here. They were the first humans to ever set foot on an alien station. They carried with them all of humanity's hope and all of humanity's history. The Council was watching. The galaxy was watching, and deep in the hearts of every alien present, fear was beginning to grow. The council chamber was the largest room Yuna had ever seen. The ceiling rose so high that clouds seemed to form near the top. The walls were made of living crystal that changed color with the mood of those inside. Right now, the crystals were a dark purple color that meant worry and suspicion. 12 species sat in a half-circle before her. Each had their own section, their own style of seating. The Gorath sat on platforms of solid rock. The Villani floated in spheres of contained light. The Nexari sat perfectly still in chairs that seemed to be made of shadow itself. Yuna walked to the center of the room. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. Wujin stayed behind at the entrance, as the rules required. She was alone before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. High Chancellor Morath spoke first. His voice was soft, but somehow filled the entire chamber. "Human delegate, you have traveled far to reach us. We thank you for accepting our invitation." Yuna bowed her head slightly. "Thank you for giving us this chance to speak, Chancellor." "Before we begin," Morath continued, "you should know what we have learned about your people. Our scouts have studied your world. We have read your histories. We have watched your broadcasts." A holographic display appeared in the air above Yuna. Images began to play. She saw wars. She saw explosions. She saw soldiers marching and cities burning. She saw the faces of the dead and the tears of those left behind. The images changed. She saw protests and riots. She saw people fighting in streets. She saw the flash of nuclear weapons testing in empty deserts. Then came the worst images. She saw camps where millions had been killed for no reason other than hate. She saw children crying over the bodies of their parents. She saw the true darkness of human history displayed for all the galaxy to see. Yuna forced herself to watch. She did not look away. When the images finally stopped, Chancellor Morath spoke again. "You have fought over resources when you had enough to share. You have killed over ideas that hurt no one. You have divided yourselves by the color of your skin, the place of your birth, the gods you pray to." His voice grew heavy. "In all our years of watching the stars, we have never seen a species so devoted to its own destruction. Explain this." The chamber waited. Every alien eye was fixed on the small human woman standing alone in the center of the room. Yuna was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "I cannot explain it, Chancellor. I can only acknowledge it." A murmur ran through the chamber. This was not the answer they expected. The Nexari delegate leaned forward. His voice was cold and precise. "Acknowledgement is not reassurance. Human. The Larathi have never known civil war. They resolved their differences through logic before they ever reached the stars. The Gorath ended their tribal conflicts over 10,000 years ago. Even the Villani, who once knew violence, moved beyond it within a single generation. He paused, his black eyes locked on Yuna. Your species has had thousands of years, tens of thousands, and still you fight. Still, you kill. Why should we believe you will not bring this violence to the stars? Yuna looked at him directly. You are right, she said. We have always fought. From the first days when we were just animals trying to survive on a harsh world, we fought. We fought the cold. We fought the heat. We fought the creatures that hunted us. And yes, we fought each other. She took a step forward. But you are missing something important. Through all that fighting, through all that darkness, we never stopped reaching for the light. We built cities. We created art. We wrote music and poetry. We studied the stars and dreamed of touching them. The Lorthy delegates and Tenny twitched nervously. Dreams do not erase blood, he said. No, Yuna agreed. They do not. Our history is written in blood, but it is also written in hope. Every time we fell into darkness, some of us fought to bring back the light. Every time we destroyed, some of us rebuilt. We are not perfect. We may never be perfect, but we are still trying. Chancellor Morath floated down from his seat to face Yuna more closely. You speak well, human. But words are easy. We have seen what your species does to itself. How can we trust that you will not do the same to us? Yuna met his gaze without fear. You cannot trust us completely, she said. Just as we cannot trust you completely. Trust must be built, not given. All I can promise you is that we did not come here to make war. We came here because we looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. We came here because we hoped to find friends. She paused. We know what we are. We know our darkness better than anyone. But we also know our light. We have doctors who spend their lives saving strangers. We have teachers who give everything to help children learn. We have people who run into burning buildings to save those they have never met. Her voice grew stronger. Yes, we are capable of terrible things. But we are also capable of wonderful things. And we are here, standing before you, asking for a chance to show you which path we want to choose. The chamber was silent. The crystal walls shifted color slowly, moving from dark purple toward a lighter shade. Chancellor Morath studied her for a long moment. Then he turned back to his seat. We will consider your words human. This council will meet again tomorrow to continue this discussion. As Yuna turned to leave, she felt the weight of 100 alien eyes on her back. She could feel their fear, their doubt, their uncertainty, but somewhere, deep beneath all that fear, she thought she felt something else, a tiny spark of hope. She walked back to where Wujin waited by the door. His face showed no expression, but his eyes asked a silent question. They listened, Yuna said quietly. That is more than we hoped for. Outside the chamber. Neither of them noticed the silent alarm beginning to flash on the station's distant sensors. Something was coming. Something that would change everything. The attack came without warning. Yuna and Wujin were walking through the station's main corridor when the first explosion shook the floor beneath their feet. The lights flickered. Then they turned red. A loud alarm began to sound, filling the air with its terrible cry. Around them, aliens of all species began to run. Some screamed. Others simply froze, not knowing what to do. The peace of the station had been broken. No one remembered how to respond. Wujin grabbed Yuna's arm and pulled her against the wall. Stay down, he said. His voice was calm, even as chaos spread around them. Through the window, they could see ships emerging from the darkness of space. Black ships with sharp edges and red lights, dozens of them. They moved like predators circling their prey. What are those? Yuna asked. A Vellani official rushed past them. His glowing form was flickering with panic. The Harrow kind, he gasped. They have returned. After 500 years, they have returned. Wujin had read about the Harrow kind in the files given to him before this mission. They were a species that had been expelled from the galactic community long ago. They were violent, aggressive. They believed that strength was the only law that mattered, and now they were here. More explosions rocked the station. The walls cracked. Air began to leak from damaged sections. Emergency doors slammed shut, trapping some people in dangerous areas. Woojin pulled out his communication device and connected to their ship. Mingi, Taiho Sahi Junho-do, you hear me? 4 voices answered at once. These were the other humans on the mission. Soldiers. Good ones. They had been waiting on the ship while Yuna attended the council meeting. Captain, we see the attack, Minji said. Her voice was steady. What are your orders? Get to the council chamber. Protect the delegates. Move now. Yes, Captain. Woojin turned to Yuna. We need to get you somewhere safe. Yuna shook her head. The council chamber. If the delegates die, humanity loses any chance of joining the galactic community. Woojin wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. They began to move through the corridors, pushing against the flow of panicked aliens running the other way. In the council chamber, everything had fallen apart. The great meeting of 12 species had become a scene of pure fear. Delegates were screaming. Guards were running in circles. Chancellor Morith was trying to give orders, but no one was listening. The station's defense systems were old and weak. They had not been updated in centuries because no one believed an attack would ever come. Now those old systems were failing, one by one. The first boarding pod hit the outer hull like a metal fist, then another, then 10 more. The Harrowkind were cutting their way inside. Woojin arrived at the chamber just as the first reports came in. They have breached the east section, a Goroth guard shouted. We cannot hold them. Woojin looked around the room. He saw fear on every face. These beings had lived in peace for so long that they had forgotten how to fight. But Woojin had not forgotten. Neither had his team. Ambassador, he said to Yuna, stay with the Chancellor. Do not move from this room. Then he walked to the nearest computer terminal and began to work. His fingers moved quickly across the strange alien controls. Within minutes, he had accessed the station's defense grid. What are you doing? A Nexari delegate demanded. Saving your lives, Woojin replied without looking up. He redirected power from the decorative lights to the shields. He closed all non-essential doors to slow the enemy advance. He sent false signals to confuse the Harrowkind ships outside. His 4 soldiers arrived moments later. Mingi carried a rifle. Taiho had a heavy weapon strapped across his back. Sahi held 2 short blades. Junho was setting up a portable communication system. The east corridor is the weak point, Woojin told them. That is where they will come through. We hold that position. We do not let them reach this chamber. Understood, Captain, they said together. The 5 humans moved to the corridor entrance. Behind them, over 100 alien delegates watched in confusion and fear. 5 of them, the Lorthy delegate whispered. Only 5. Against the Harrowkind, first wave of attackers appeared at the end of the corridor. The Harrowkind were large creatures covered in dark armor that seemed to grow from their skin. They had claws like knives and teeth like broken glass. They moved fast, faster than most species could react. But humans were different. Minji fired first. Her shot hit the lead Harrowkind directly in the chest. It stumbled, but did not fall. These creatures were tough. Aim for the joints, Woojin commanded. Slow them down. More shots rang out. Taiho's heavy weapon roared like thunder. The Harrowkind fell. 3 more took their place. The corridor became a battlefield. The air filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. The humans stood their ground, firing and reloading. Firing and reloading. A Harrowkind broke through the line and charged at Sahi. She did not run. Instead, she moved toward it, sliding beneath its claws and driving her blade into the weak point at its knee. The creature fell. She finished it with a second strike. Junho was hit by a flying piece of metal. Blood ran down his face, but he did not stop. He kept working his communication system, jamming the enemy signals and coordinating station's remaining defenses. The battle lasted 11 minutes when it was over. 17 Harrowkind bodies lay in the corridor. The humans were wounded, tired, and covered in blood, some of it theirs, most of it not. But they were still standing. Behind them, the council chamber was safe. Every delegate had survived. Woojin wiped blood from his eyes and turned to face the aliens who had watched everything. "The corridor is secure," he said simply. No one spoke. No one moved. The Lorothy delegate stared at the humans with his antenna pressed flat against his head. The Goroth looked at their own massive hands. Then at the small humans who had done what they could not. Chancellor Morath floated forward, his light dimmer than before. He asked, "There were only 5 of you." Wujin looked at his team. At Mingi, with her wounded shoulder. At Taiho, limping from a deep cut. At Sahi, still holding her broken blade. At Junho, with blood running down his face. "There were enough," Wujin said. The battle was over, but the silence that followed was heavier than any gunfire. Smoke still drifted through the corridor. The bodies of the Herakind lay where they had fallen, their dark armor cracked and broken. The smell of burnt metal, and something worse, hung in the air. The 5 humans stood among the fallen enemies. They were breathing hard. Sweat and blood covered their faces. Their weapons were nearly empty. But they were alive, and so was everyone they had protected. Chancellor Morath moved slowly toward them. His light flickered weakly, as if the events of the past few minutes had drained something vital from him. He stopped a few steps away from Wujin and simply looked at him. "You did not run," the Chancellor said. His voice was barely a whisper. Wujin lowered his weapon. "No, Chancellor, we did not." The Herakind are known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors. Even the Goroth avoid direct combat with them when possible. Morath paused, and yet 5 of you stood against them. 5. Behind the Chancellor, the other delegates began to emerge from where they had taken shelter. The Lorothy delegate walked forward on shaking legs. His antennae were still flat with fear, but something else was in his eyes now, something like wonder. "This is what we were afraid of," the Lorothy said quietly. "This violence. This willingness to kill without hesitation." Wujin looked at him directly. "You're right to notice it," he said. "We are good at violence. Our history made us this way. On Earth, if you could not fight, you did not survive. That is the truth of our species." The Lorothy took a step back. "Then our fears were correct." "You are dangerous." "Yes," Wujin agreed simply. "We are." But then Yuna stepped forward. She had been watching from near the chamber entrance, protected but not hiding. Her diplomatic robes were dirty now, marked with dust and small burns from the battle. "He speaks the truth," she said. "We are dangerous. But consider something, delegate. When the attack began, what did your guards do?" The Lorothy's antennae twitched nervously. He did not answer. "They ran," Yuna said, not cruelly, just honestly. "They had forgotten how to fight because they never needed to learn. The same is true for most species here. You have lived in peace so long that violence became something from old stories." She gestured at the fallen Herakind. "But peace is not natural. It must be protected. And when something threatens that peace, someone must stand against it." The Goroth delegate spoke up. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Our ancestors were warriors once. We left that path long ago. We thought we had grown beyond the need for such things." He looked at his own massive hands. "Perhaps we were wrong to forget." Minji sat down heavily against the wall, pressing a cloth against her wounded shoulder. Blood soaked through the fabric immediately. Sahi moved to help her, pulling out a small medical kit. "You fought to protect us," the young Villani named Sira said softly. She floated near the humans, watching as they tended to their wounds. "You did not know us? You have no alliance with the Council. We treated you with suspicion and fear, and still you fought." Taiho looked up at her while wrapping a bandage around his leg. "What else would we do?" he asked. His voice was tired but genuine. "Let you die? That is not who we are." "But you could have escaped," Sarah pressed. "Your ship was undamaged. You could have left the station and saved yourselves." Junho laughed softly, then winced as the movement hurt his wounded head. "Leave. We just got here. We have not even finished our first meeting." Despite everything, a few of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Chancellor Morath moved through the corridor, looking at each fallen enemy, then at each standing human. His ancient mind was processing everything he had witnessed. "I have lived for 2,000 years," he said finally. "I have seen many things. Wars that ended civilizations. Peace treaties that united bitter enemies. The rise and fall of empires across 100 star systems turned to face the humans. But I have never seen anything quite like what happened here today. You are small. You are young. Your species has only just reached the stars. And yet you stood where others could not." Eugene met the Chancellor's gaze. "We are not heroes, Chancellor. We are soldiers. We did what we were trained to do," perhaps Morath replied. "But training alone does not explain what I saw. When the Herokind charged, your people did not hesitate. They did not freeze. They moved toward danger while every instinct should have told them to flee." He paused, his light growing slightly stronger. "That is not just training. That is something deeper. Something in your nature." The Nexari delegate had been silent throughout this exchange. Now he spoke, his cold voice cutting through the air. "We recorded everything. The entire battle. 11 minutes and 37 seconds. His black eyes fixed on Wujin. "I have analyzed your movements, your decision-making, your coordination. It was remarkable, but it was also terrifying." Wujin said nothing. "You killed 17 Herokind," the Nexari continued. "That is more than entire battalions of other species have managed. You did it without advanced weapons, without shields, without any of the technology that other council species rely on." He tilted his head. "How?" Wujin considered the question for a long moment before answering. "On Earth, we have a saying. It goes like this: it is not the size of the dog in the fight. It is the size of the fight in the dog." The translator struggled with the phrase. Several delegates looked confused. "It means," Yuna explained, "that determination matters more than strength. Courage matters more than numbers. A small force that refuses to give up can defeat a larger force that expects easy victory." The Lorathi delegate shook his head slowly. "You are a species that lives on the edge of chaos. Always fighting. Always struggling. Never at peace, even with yourselves." He looked at the wounded humans. "And yet somehow, that chaos has made you strong in ways we cannot understand." Sahi finished bandaging Minji's shoulder and stood up straight. "We are not strong because of the chaos," she said quietly. "We are strong because we refuse to let the chaos win. Every time the darkness comes, we fight it. Every time we fall, we get back up. That is the human way." The crystal walls of the station flickered. Then slowly they began to shift color. The dark purple faded, replaced by a soft blue, the color of respect. 3 weeks passed. The Herokind fleet had been driven back. Their attack on Station Orva had failed, thanks in large part to the chaos created by 5 humans in a single corridor. Word of what happened spread quickly through the galaxy. Stories were told on 100 worlds about the small, fierce creatures from Earth who had stood against impossible odds. The station was slowly being repaired. Workers from many species labored together to fix the damaged sections. The corridor where the battle had taken place was left untouched for now. Some said it would become a memorial. Others said it should be sealed forever and forgotten. But one thing could not be forgotten: the question of humanity's place among the stars. The council gathered once more in the great chamber. This time the mood was different. The crystal walls glowed with soft colors that shifted between blue and gold. There was tension in the air, but not the cold fear that had existed before. Yuna stood in the center of the room again, but she was not alone this time. Wujin stood beside her, along with Minji, Taiho, Sahi, Junho. Their wounds had healed, though some would carry scars forever. They wore clean clothes now, but every delegate remembered how they had looked covered in blood and smoke. Chancellor Morath called the session to order. "We have debated long and hard," he began. "The events of recent weeks have forced us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the humans." He paused, looking at each delegate in turn. "Some of you still believe they are too dangerous to be trusted, that their violent nature will eventually turn against us, that inviting them into the council is inviting a predator into our home." The Lorathi delegate shifted uncomfortably. He had been one of the loudest voices calling for humanity's rejection. Others believe that same violent nature is exactly what the Council needs. Moroth continued. The Harrow kind have returned. Other threats may exist in the dark places between stars. For 3,000 years we have kept peace by avoiding conflict. But what happens when conflict finds us? He turned to face the humans. We have asked the human delegates to speak once more before we vote. Ambassador Yuna, the floor is yours. Yuna stepped forward. She had prepared a speech. But looking at the faces around her, alien faces that had once seemed so strange and now seemed almost familiar, she found that she did not need it. Chancellor delegates. When I first came to this station, I was prepared to argue for my people. To convince you that we deserved a place among the stars despite our history. She shook her head slowly. But I will not do that now. Our history speaks for itself. We are violent. We are chaotic. We have hurt ourselves and each other in ways that no other species can fully understand. Murmurs ran through the chamber. This was not what they expected. But I have learned something in these weeks, Yuna continued. I have learned that you are afraid of us not because of what we have done, but because of what we might do. You look at our wars, and you see destruction. You look at our conflicts, and you see madness. She paused. You do not see what we see. She turned to look at her companions. When Wujin held that corridor, he was not thinking about killing. He was thinking about the 100 beings behind him who would die if he failed. When Minji took a blade to her shoulder, she did not stop fighting because there were still people counting on her. When Taiho, Sahi, and Junho bled for strangers they had never met, they were not being violent. They were being human. She faced the council again. Our violence is not madness. It is purpose. When we fight for something. For our families. For our homes. For our future. And yes, sometimes we fight for the wrong reasons. Sometimes we make terrible mistakes. But the fire that burns within us, that same fire that has caused so much destruction, is also the fire that drives us to protect, to build, to hope. Chancellor Marath listened in silence. You asked me before why you should trust us, Yuna said. I told you then that trust must be built. I still believe that, but I also believe that trust begins with action, not words. And our actions have already spoken. She gestured at her team. 5 humans. 11 minutes. 100 lives saved. That is who we can be when we choose to be our best selves. The chamber was quiet. The crystal walls shifted through soft shades of color. Finally, Chancellor Morath spoke. Thank you, Ambassador. You have given us much to consider. He turned to the assembled delegates. We will now vote. All in favor of accepting humanity into the Galactic Council? One by one, lights began to appear above the delegate seats. Blue for yes. Red for no. White for abstain? The Goroth voted yes. They had not forgotten who protected them. The Villani voted yes. Sira smiled softly as her light joined the others. The Nexari abstained. Their cold eyes revealed nothing. The Lorthi hesitated. His antennae moved slowly. Then finally, a blue light appeared above his seat. His voice was quiet when he spoke. They terrify me. But perhaps the galaxy needs something to terrify our enemies. When the count was finished, 9 blue lights shone in the chamber. 3 white. None red. Humanity had been accepted. Chancellor Morath floated down to face Yuna. Welcome to the Galactic Council, humanity. May this be the beginning of a long and peaceful friendship. Yuna bowed her head. Thank you, Chancellor. We will try to be worthy of this trust. As the session ended and delegates began to leave, Wujin moved to stand beside Yuna. The two of them looked out through the great windows at the stars beyond. We did it, Yuna said quietly. This is only the beginning, Wujin replied. They have accepted us, but they still fear us. It will take time to change that, Yuna nodded. Then we will take that time. We will show them who we really are. All of us. Not just our darkness, but our light. Behind them, Minji, Taiho, Sahi, and Junho joined them at the window. 6 humans, standing together, looking out at a galaxy that was now open to them. Somewhere out there, in the dark spaces between stars, threats waited. The Herakind were only the beginning. There would be other dangers, other battles, other moments when the galaxy would need someone willing to stand in the fire. And when those moments came, humanity would be ready. Not because they loved violence, but because they loved what violence could protect. The stars stretched out before them. It's endless and full of possibility. A new chapter in human history had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.